Hello, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be sharing some of my own personal story of what my first Ramadan was like. This was a few years ago now, so I took my Shahada in May of 2013, and July of 2013 is when the first Ramadan was for me. So I thought I'd share with you what that was like, how I found it, how I got through it, and basically where I am today, 11 years later. So let's talk about it. So before I get into my first Ramadan, I think it's probably best to have a bit of a backstory about the first time I tried fasting. And this was probably 3 years before I became Muslim. Yeah, 2 or 3 years before then. So I had actually found out about Ramadan. I did not know what that was. I knew that Muslims existed, but I didn't know that they fasted for 30 days. And by fasting, I didn't realize that meant like no food or water. I thought they were like just like limited by what they could eat. So yeah, I didn't understand any of it. For me, I thought that this was such a big deal. I didn't think it was possible for any human to be able to go without any food or any water for an entire day. I could not comprehend that. The man who is now my husband is the one who said to me at that time in university, he was like, "Oh, God makes it easy for you." And that totally went over my head. Again, did not understand that. So I was like, okay, if this is so easy, let me try it and see what it's like. So I didn't tell like anybody. I was still living with my parents. They had no idea that I wanted to try this and just to know what it was like. So I didn't tell anybody. I remember on my way home from university, I bought some kind of snack. I think it was like a fruit bun or something like that, because I was going to keep it in my room so that I could eat that in the morning for my suhoor and then try fasting for the whole day and then come home and have dinner with my family. But I didn't tell anybody else that I was doing it, so nobody knew that this was happening. And I remember waking up really early and being like really quiet so that I didn't wake up anybody else in my house. And then, eating and then literally just going to bed. And then I think that because it wasn't something that was really important to me, it's just something that I wanted to see, like what it felt like, what it was sort of like. I didn't actually feel the pressure of having to keep a fast for the entire day. And so because of that, it wasn't challenging for me. And also here in New Zealand during July, that time of year, the fasting hours are very short anyway. So I guess it didn't really feel any different to me. And I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of like not a big deal. You just have to make sure that you eat and don't eat at the right times. And I've just never thought anything about it afterwards. It was like not a big deal until 2013. After I took my Shahada, I felt like most new Muslims overwhelmed by having to learn so much and understand so much. And it's certainly overwhelming, especially with people always trying to give you advice. And for my very first Ramadan, spoiler alert, it did not go well. I think that I just wasn't ready. I just didn't have the knowledge or the understanding or that sort of deep connection yet to be able to appreciate why we actually fast as Muslims. In my mind, I was still thinking of it as, I guess, a punishment in a way, or something that I was forced to do that I didn't want to do. And like I say all the time, it's about your mindset. If you don't have the right mindset before trying anything, it's most definitely not going to go well. You will not be successful in that endeavor. And that was certainly the case for me. Because I went in with literally thinking, I can't do this, I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm not going to be able to do this. It really, really, really was a struggle for me. I think out of the 30 days, I was only actually able to fast maybe 2 or 3 of those 30 days. I just struggled so much. I'm not somebody who has a big, or at least back then, this is like 11 years ago, I didn't have a very big appetite in the morning, so having to eat something for suhoor was actually very, very difficult. I just couldn't get enough food down, and there was, I think on the first day I was actually like trying to force myself to eat and to drink, and obviously do it before before Fajr started. And I just literally felt like the food like trying to like come back up, because I was just like trying to like stuff down there, trying to keep it in. And that was definitely a horrible experience. And I didn't really have anybody to sort of guide me or to help me or to give me tips on like the kinds of foods to eat or how to approach Ramadan as a whole. I didn't have any of that. So I literally just went in day one of Ramadan trying to force feed myself for suhoor, and really just struggling to keep that in, just having headaches and indigestion and acid reflux issues, and just literally feeling like I needed to throw up all the time. It was not a good experience. I could handle not eating and not drinking, but I really, really struggled with the side effects of not eating and drinking. And that really, really put me off, and it made my mindset even worse. It made me think, oh my God, like, Ramadan happens every single year. Is this what it's going to be like for the rest of my life? And am I going to continue to fail at this endeavor for the rest of my life? Is this what it's going to be like? So I was really down in the dumps about it. Like, I felt like even though I was Muslim, I wasn't Muslim, because I'm not really fasting in Ramadan, because I'm struggling so much. There were all these thoughts going in through my mind. And this is only like 2 months after me taking my Shahada. And I was so hard on myself because I couldn't do what everybody else was doing. And it really hit me hard. And it was certainly challenging. But the funny thing is, come to my second Ramadan, and it was the complete opposite experience. Only 12 months later, or 11 months later, I was able to get a better understanding of why we fast. And there wasn't as much pressure at that point, I feel. I think it was just too soon for me after taking my Shahada, and then like weeks later going into fasting for the first time. Like, I think that was just too much too soon. And so I think that's why it was easier for the second Ramadan, because for the second Ramadan I had a plan. I understood like what I needed to do, how I was going to do this, the types of food that would trigger me, and the types of food that wouldn't. So I had experience now, and I was able to fast for the entire month, except for the obvious days where I was on my period and couldn't fast. But for the rest of those 23 days, so however many it was that year, I was able to fast, alhamdulillah. And even now I keep thinking about that experience, the first Ramadan that I had, and how it was such a challenge for me, how I struggled so very much. And understanding that from that experience, I know now for a fact that fasting is definitely a mental game before it is a physical game. Because I had that mindset, because I felt so overwhelmed, because I felt so incapable at that time, that is really what was holding me back. It wasn't like my body not being able to do it. It was my mind that was telling me that I was not able to do it. That's where the problem really was. And I can see that so clearly now, but at the time it was not that obvious. So if this is your first Ramadan and you're scared, like most of us are, most of us converts, first Ramadan is always scary because it's something we've never experienced before. We don't know what's going to happen. Our greatest fear is that we're not going to be able to do it. And that's totally understandable. It's such a human way to feel. But I thought I'd share some of my tips with you. This is going to be my 12th Ramadan, so I feel like I have a bit more experience now. And hopefully some of the things that I've picked up along the way will be of benefit to you. My first tip is to build knowledge. And this would be a general tip for anyone who has just taken their Shahada. But what really connects you with God and with the religion is actually knowing and understanding the religion. And this takes time. It's not something that's going to happen within the first few weeks of you being Muslim. It will take years. And it's, we all work at a different pace. So don't think that, oh, I'm learning too slowly and I need to be here because this is where everybody else is. No, that's not what it is. You go at the pace that is reasonable for you, but you need to keep progressing. You can't be stagnant. You have to keep growing, moving, learning. It's a continuous process, and that will never ever stop. You will always be learning the Deen. You will always be learning the Deen until the day you leave this dunya. You will be learning. And that might sound intimidating, but I would like to reframe that for you. Look at this as an opportunity to get closer to God by learning more about how He wants us to live this life. Everything is in order to get closer to Him. Everything is for Him. But the benefit of learning to do specifically with Ramadan is that most of us, like I said, it's a mindset thing. The difficulty that we feel with fasting is the fact that we don't think that we're able to do it, and that it's impossible, and that it's a punishment, and that, this is just extreme. Why are we doing this extreme thing? These are kind of thoughts that run through our head. The way to combat those thoughts is to actually find out, why do we fast? What is Ramadan actually about? What are we trying to achieve in these 30 days? Why did Allah make us do this? Do your research, find out, because once you understand what it's all about, and no, it is not about understanding what it is like for people who don't have food. That is not the point of Ramadan. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to go and find out for yourself. There are plenty of resources online about it. And like I said, it's not about us understanding what poor people feel like. It's not about us understanding what the needy feel like. That is not the point of Ramadan. So that's a tip for you. If you come across that, that's not it. But yes, once you understand what Ramadan is all about, then you will realize that you are doing this for the sake of Allah. You are doing this because you believe in Him. You are doing this because you want to worship Him. Once you have that in your mind, once you realize that this is not a punishment, once you realize that this is an act of love, that changes your mindset, that changes the whole experience for you. And that will certainly help you, not just with fasting, but with everything else that we do to worship Allah. It makes it easier when it comes from a place of love, when it's your choice. So definitely build that knowledge so that you can get to that point where you feel that this is an act of love. My second tip would be to deal with any health issues that you have. Now, of course, if you have serious health issues that would be made worse if you were to fast, then it is not obligatory for you to do so. However, if you have minor things like, blood pressure problems or things like that, try and deal with that before you get to Ramadan. So me, for example, like I mentioned, I have a lot of issues with acid reflux, and when you don't eat food, a lot of people, their acid reflux gets significantly worse, and you just feel like you want to vomit. It's just a horrible experience. This is something I've had to work on outside of Ramadan, so that once I get to Ramadan and I have to fast, I'm not affected as badly. So whatever it is that is the condition for you that makes it difficult for you to fast, try and sort that out during the other 11 months of the year. Try and take the absolute best care of yourself so that when it comes to Ramadan, you're not going to have to worry about that. Fasting is going to be easier for you. Your body, your health is not going to hold you back. You're going to be able to fast just like everybody else is fasting. And there are plenty of resources available online for specific conditions and how you can make it easier for you to fast during Ramadan. Because trust me, if you have some kind of health problem and you're trying to fast, you are not the only one. There's likely to be at least one other person on the planet that's experiencing the same thing that you are. There's always help out there. You just need to find it. You just have to be determined. For me personally, I have IBS, I struggle with acid reflux, I'm lactose intolerant, and that's only the digestive issues that I have. I have several other health issues. and I do my absolute best throughout the year to make sure that I am keeping my body at a state where I can easily go into Ramadan. And I always have a plan going into Ramadan, so I know if it's going to be difficult for me, that I need to take extra steps like weeks before Ramadan. Like, it depends on what I'm going through health wise. I'm always making sure that I am in the best health that I can be, so that I can worship my Lord. That is always my intention with my health. And that brings me to my third point, which I sort of mentioned before, but I have a plan for Ramadan. I really struggle to just start on the 1st of Ramadan to fast and be okay because of all of my digestive issues and whatever else. So I like to start my Ramadan plan maybe 6 to 8 weeks before Ramadan actually comes. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know I've already released the free Ramadan planner. And the reason that I released it was because I started planning at that time, which was back in January, I believe. That is a free download. You can still get it if you want. The link will be in the description. Essentially, I plan each week, each of the 8 weeks before Ramadan, and how I'm going to prepare my mind, my body, and my soul to go into Ramadan. And that might mean like me changing the types of food that I eat or the timings of the meals that I have. So, for example, in the first few weeks, I'll probably just reduce my lunch portion. And then the week after that, I'll probably not have lunch, or I won't have any snacks. I'm basically trying to reduce the amount of food that I'm having during the day and making the 2 meals, the breakfast and dinner, my main meals, and slowly adjusting that over the week so that it becomes easier for my body. So when it comes to the 1st of Ramadan, my body's not all confused and freaking out about what's going on, why aren't we eating or drinking, because I've slowly adjusted that over time. That makes a huge difference for my digestive system, and it makes it a lot easier for me to actually fast. So that is something that I've been doing for years now, and that is just the norm for me. Like, I cannot go into Ramadan late. I need my minimum 1 month before Ramadan plan. And as part of that plan, I probably will do a couple of, like, I call them practice fasts, but it is actually fasting. But like I said before, you know, when I tried fasting at university, it was easy for me because I didn't feel the pressure, because I was like, okay, you know, if I want, I can just break my fast, it doesn't matter. And that was easy as compared to my first Ramadan, where I had put so much importance on fasting. It was like, oh my God, you know, if I can't do this, then I'm going to be a bad Muslim. And those kind of thoughts were in my head. So I'm trying to use that same technique before Ramadan. Do some practice fasts where there's not so much pressure for me to succeed. And also it will train my body to get used to fasting. So by the time I get into Ramadan, it's not going to be as hard for me. So I always factor that into my plan as well. And my last tip 4, which is really just a good overall tip for life, just to remain positive. And I think that when you're a new Muslim, like I said, there's so much pressure and there's so much overwhelm for you to learn as fast as you can and be as Muslim as you can. And that's really an unrealistic thought, because nobody can do everything at once. It's not possible for you to have all the knowledge at once. You require some time. You need experience. You need to understand. We're not trying to race through everything here. That's not the point. You have to have empathy for yourself. You have to think of it like this. This is how I've learned to think about it. So I have been Muslim for 11 years. So if I were an 11-year-old child going into Ramadan, how would I treat that child? Would I be difficult with that child? Would I put them down and say, oh, this is so easy, why are you struggling with this so much? You should be able to do this by now. Are those the kind of things that I would say to them? Or would I be kind and empathetic and supportive towards them? This is what you have to do for yourself. If you have just started, if you're not even 1 year old yet as a Muslim, you have to have so much patience and empathy for yourself, because you are so fresh. You are a baby in Islam. Yes, it's going to be hard for you because you're just starting out. You have to remember that it's not going to be perfect. Perfection is reserved for Allah. You're going to make mistakes. It is going to be challenging. But as long as you keep remembering that you need to be kind to yourself, you need to just keep trying your best and keep moving forward and keep asking Allah to make it easy for you. That is the key to keeping a positive mindset. It's not about being overconfident and thinking that you can do anything. No, we rely on Allah for everything, no matter what it is. So it's always just remembering that you're so young. It will take time for you to develop these skills. It will take time for your body to get used to this. It is okay if you make a mistake. It is okay if you have to try again. It is okay if you've missed a day and now you've got to make that day up at another time. It is okay. Remember, your intentions matter more than anything else. If you are going in with the intention that you want to worship your Lord by fasting, by following His commands, and you are doing the absolute best that you can to do so, there's nothing that you need to worry about. Allah knows. He sees. He hears you. He knows that you are struggling. So don't ever think that you are not capable. Don't ever feel like you should just give up. That's not from Allah. I hope this video was helpful for you. If it is your first Ramadan, I pray that Allah makes it easy for you. I pray that He continues to make every Ramadan after this easy for you, that you're able to build upon it and get closer and closer to Him. I hope this Ramadan affects your heart, and when you leave this Ramadan, I hope that you are changed. And I pray this not just for my new Muslims, but even for the ones who were born Muslim. I hope this Ramadan is one of your best, inshallah. I hope you've benefited from this video, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye for now.